you talked about something, and it was about, doing things even though you don't feel like it. And it brings me to my next question. In difficult times, and because I want women to be able to identify with certain, weaknesses or just experiences that you've had, that you maybe wanted to quit, or you just feel so inadequate. And before we get into that, I want to read Proverbs 3:3. And it says, "Let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart." And I've read this before, and it sounds beautiful, but that's hard. That's really hard.
Yeah.
Because it let love and faithfulness never leave you and bind them around your neck. It can be so hard to love, because love is not an emotion, and so many of us think that your love is only based on that emotion, on that feeling of love. Love is not easy, and neither is faithfulness. Recently I started working out, going to the gym, and there's moments that you're beginning the base, so your base speed, and then you go to the push where you're a little bit uncomfortable, but then you go to the all out. And it's like, when I'm at the push, you almost kind of want to quit.
Yeah.
You feel like quitting. You almost like, this is uncomfortable. I don't like being uncomfortable. I just want to stop. I want to be comfortable. I want to walk slower.
Yeah.
But you don't. And so I've just been really chewing on faithfulness, what faithfulness is. And it's pushing through even when you don't feel like it.
Yeah.
So you just talked about, doing things even when you don't feel like it, but the word says to do this. So it's a principle that you live by. Talk to me about how have you practiced faithfulness in times of trouble when you didn't feel like it.
Yeah.
Share, because there's so many people, that men and women alike, that they just feel like quitting. And I think there's a rich principle in that. So just share a little bit about that.
The principle of living based on principles versus, emotive, feeling, whatever. To love, the agape love versus the philo, I think that's how you say it. Is that right? Love, where one's very emotive, very emotional, very lovey. I feel this way, therefore I am this way. And that's kind of our typified of our culture. Like, if you don't feel good, I also heard it said, oh, there's no grace on that, honey.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Oh my gosh. Like, I was kind of raised that way. So I was in for a really rude awakening when life was hard.
Right.
When responsibilities came, and it wasn't like, oh, I'm just floating in the spirit and the angels are taking care of everything. It wasn't like, it's not like that. It's not like that.
Yeah.
It's like we wake up, and when there's nothing left in us, first and foremost, I will say, to be in the Word, to be in prayer, just even 15 minutes in the morning to kind of set your pace for the day. It's really imperative for me. It'd be like if we drank a glass of water in the morning, and then the next day expected that to sustain us, that one glass of water. It's kind of a daily come to Him for the mercy of the day. He says, don't worry about tomorrow, but live each day. Each day has enough worries of its own. And I used to be super stressed out. And I'm like, God, I have something every day and night this entire week. And He said, keep going. And that was a shock to me, because I wasn't raised that way. I was raised boundaries. I was raised healthy boundaries, limits. You got to take care of your family first. And boundaries are good, and limits are good, and taking care of your family is good. But sometimes God calls us up to a greater level of fruitfulness and responsibility in certain seasons. Right. And we have to choose whether we're going to step up and step into the more, or whether we're going to back off, back down, and listen to how we feel versus what He says.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so He says, keep going. And when He said, keep going, I realized I have enough for every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I quit looking at my week, and I quit looking at my month and my year, and I started looking at my days. And I put things on the calendar like everyone else, but I do every day. I say, your mercies are morning. Give me your mercies for today, Lord. Yeah. And I step out into that. And then and that's more of a macro thing, but on a micro, in the moments when I'm at home, and I've been home for a few days like you, or a week, or whatever it is, by myself with the kids, or and people are screaming at. I have 4 kids, and they are incessantly, they are demanding something from me. They were like, I want a grilled cheese. And then I put a grilled cheese, like, I don't want a grilled cheese. I'm like, what do you mean you don't want a grilled cheese? I made everyone a special order dinner, and now everyone's still screaming.
Yeah.
What happened? And you feel so taken advantages of, and so, whatever. And you just get to the end of your rope. I've had times where Landon, one of my son, has acted like suicidal on me. He's 10. And for him to convey this self-hatred and this worthlessness and just, it's so demonic. But at the same time, how do I approach that when I'm on E? I've had that happen when I'm on E and I'm like, I can't do this. And I get thinking, I can't do this, God. And then I say, I am the adult and you've given me grace for this. So in my weakness, my strength is, his strength is made perfect, you know, and that's what Paul says. And so I say, I'm weak, God. I've got that tax collector's prayer, you know, where I kind of suck right now. And I need you to help me. And so just to know to lean into the person of God in the moment, in the height of the moment, just stop for us, get away from the kids, whatever it takes, get away from the stressful situation and say, just regroup with God. To regroup with God, like how would you have me handle this? Like, what's the heart of the Father? What's the wisdom of God in this moment?
So
and to step into the and it is something we step into, or it's like a cloak. And God says, ask me for wisdom and I'll give it to you in abundance, you know, in James. And I ask him for wisdom and I ask him what to do and how to handle myself and my kids appropriately when I'm in high levels of stress. He'll show up and you'll be shocked at who you are. First of all, you're shocked at who you aren't. When you're in stressful situations, are we shocked at who we aren't? Because we get around adults and we're like, I'm pretty spiritual. I'm pretty good. And we get around small children that are screaming and yelling, hitting each other, and we're like, oh no. And then you're like, wow, I'm not as calm and as patient and as full of peace and glory as I thought I was. You know?
And I think what better way for God to form his character in us than through our children. We learn so much through our children.
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
Absolutely.
Sula, like, tell me, what do you do to be able to, you know, practice that faithfulness principle?
First of all, I think that faithfulness and love, like, both are completely inconvenient. Right? Like, from a practical stance in the everyday life and being relational, like, it is, but it's so not convenient.
Nope.
Neither one of them are.
Those are the hardest things. And that's why he's like, bind them. Like,
bind them.
Keep them with you. Don't let go of them because you're going to want to. Nobody wants to carry with that.
And I think even as it pertains to having kids, like, I'll just vulnerable moment, like when I first had Zeta and I'm in ministry and there was kind of a defining moment in my parenting and even just faithfulness to like the calling of God on my life. And it was really defining for me. So there was a tornado in Joplin, Missouri. So all of the pastors on staff and everybody's like going out to like do ministry, kingdom work, and it was just so awesome. I was like, this is my heart, to minister to people that are broken and hurting. Like, I want to go. And Zeta was so little, I couldn't go. So I had this moment, very selfish moment, where God was breaking me and teaching me, because I'm like, Lord, this is so unfair. Like, I've got a little kid, so I can't do the stuff that you're calling me to do. Like, you know? And the Lord was just showing me, like, you know, and really humbling me in that moment that, like, okay, first of all, like, you are who I say you are right now. So I had this idea that it's like one day I'm going to get to go to the nations and go and do the things that God's asked me to do. And I felt like, being a mom of littles, like, when was that ever going to happen? Like, I kind of felt just overwhelmed as a new mom, just to be straight, real, and honest. And so the Lord started really ministering to me about, like, wait a minute, everything that I've said to you prophetically, there's no timestamp on it. When I speak to you, when I'm speaking to you, it's not about some set time in the future. I speak identity. So you are who I say you are right now. There will be set times where doors open more. But what I speak over you is my heart towards you. It's your identity. It's who you are. And so the Lord just really taught me about, even as far as the angle of being faithful, like, to the calling and the things that he's spoken over my life, to remember the things that he's said about me, even in those moments that are difficult in parenting, or when we are maybe inconvenienced by disaster or things happening in life or things with our children or whatever. It's like, we still are who God says that we are. And coming back to, it's 1st or 2nd Timothy, 1 Timothy 1:18, where it talks about, like, to remember the prophecies and the things that God has spoken over you, and to use those as weapons of war, to fight with those words that God has spoken over you. So I think even when we feel like, you know, just things are happening in life and it's hard to be faithful even to the calling or who we know we are to be, to just remember what God has said to us. And so in that scenario and in that moment, I learned, like, I'm not defined, my identity is not defined by what I can do, like in the moment. Like the fact that I wasn't able to go on that outreach trip or to go do that didn't mean that I am failing.
No,
like I'm so failing in my calling. I can't evangelize, and then I was like, oh man, how selfish of me. Like I've got this incredible daughter and I'm over here saying, I can't evangelize because I've got a baby, but the Lord taught me so much about that. And so really what the Lord really inspired me to do is to like include my children in the things that he's called, the callings and the things he's placed on my life. And so that it's not about being so inconvenienced by having children and not being able to do the stuff we want to do. It's about involving them in what God has spoken over our lives. And I've grown in that more. And now like my kids are able to, when they feel led, because they're not going to perform for anybody, but when they feel led, they'll pray for someone for healing, for a healing miracle, or they'll come in and they'll pray and get a word from the Lord. Zane got a prophetic word for somebody at 4 years old. Was the first time it happened to him, because I was just like laying on the floor talking and praying with a friend, and he came in and just got a word. But he had space to be involved in that and be a part of what God was doing.
That's so
I feel like just even love and faithfulness as it pertains to being a parent and being called in a ministry, and it's challenging at times. But to involve our children in what we're doing and to remember the things that God has said and not feel like we're limited by being parents, but we are including our children into what God has spoken over our family.
That's so good because there's so many women, like I went through that, we've both been through that. I remember we had the Hurricane Michael, and it's like, I want to go. I want to go so bad. Seeing pictures of all these pastors and everything, and I was
trees.
Chopping down trees with the gloves, and you were.
She had boots on the ground.
I was like, she's doing what I want to do, and I was at home with my kids, and I was like, no fair. I want to be with them, but I had to find a contentment and just say, okay, I'm going to pray for the people. I'm going to pray for the people. I think about the old days when things like that happened. The woman stayed home and helped cooked or whatever. So what I did was I volunteered at night here at the church to serve food to the workers,
so awesome.
and
faithful with what was in front of you, even though you weren't flying on a plane to Haiti or going to chop down trees. You were faithful with what was in your hands to do,
and that's so important to know. Like you got to be content with what's in front of you, what's right there, and steward it well, so that God can give you the more. And using those times for God to just form you. And I think that's so good because so many people have struggled with that. Even the self-condemnation, like. Maybe it's not, in part it is being selfish and we don't know that we're being selfish when we think that way, but it's also feeling self-condemned, like, man, I'm not doing what, God called me to do. And then now they just fall under this performance and condemnation. Like, what can you say to those women that feel that way, like stay-at-home moms or, just people that are not there yet? How can you encourage those women today?
Yeah. So Holy Spirit is so incredibly faithful to help us in those moments when we're just like down on ourselves and we feel like we're not enough or we're not doing enough or whatever. And what I've realized is that God delights in those moments of us being a mama and in the everyday life. And so our process to whatever that big dream is that God has given to us that we feel like we're so far away from, that process to getting there is like delighting in him and him delighting in us, in all the pruning and the learning and the humbling and the being a parent and all of those things that we don't think are that important, that we're so down on ourselves about because we're not doing the big thing, that we feel like we're supposed to be doing. Actually, like Father God delights in us in all of those moments. And there's so much character development and things that are happening in those moments that are building us to be able to handle the big thing that God has for us. And I think that, I've learned to actually love correction and to love when Father God is pointing his finger to an area of my life that needs growth or maturity, because when we yield to that and confront it head on, there's so much blessing on the other side of it. So if we're beating ourselves up, if we're condemning ourselves as a woman in ministry, as a mama, or whatever those reasons are, then I think the main thing is like realizing, okay, what do I need to forgive myself for in this moment? Because if we're really critical and we're really tearing ourselves down internally, there's something that we're not forgiving and releasing ourselves for.
Yeah.
And there's some facet of the Father's heart that for some reason we're blinded to not seeing.
Right.
So it's like, okay, Father, what do I need to forgive myself for? What is the roots of me feeling this shame or condemnation or whatever it is, and show me your heart towards me. Show me how you're delighting in me in this moment. Because it's those moments of finding him delighting in me, like knowing that he's smiling, even in, like Laci said earlier, when we feel weak, like we find his strength in our weakness.
Yes.
And it's all those little moments that I have to realign myself, like with the smile of the Father. When I start feeling down on myself or feeling low or whatever it is, it's like, okay, wait, I got to give myself a little bit more grace. What do I need to forgive myself for? Why am I getting so hard on myself right now?
Yeah.
And just learning to delight in him.
Yeah, and we also have to keep in mind too that God's ultimate purpose in our lives is just to conform us into his image and likeness. And, when you were talking about that, I was just thinking like Jacob, he was in love with Rachel, but he had to get a Leah. Yeah. And so in our lives, we're so focused on the picture that we want, and we're so focused on, it's like when you dream about the man you're going to marry, and oh my God, I'm going to marry this man. He's going to have a career, and he's going to be, just the perfect person, and you get married, and he hasn't gone to school yet. Now he has to go to college, and now you got to sacrifice time with him, and he has to study, and you go through financial problems, and you go through all these Leahs, like you have to go through all these processes to get there. So it doesn't just happen. So in life, we need to realize and accept the fact that you're not going to get that Rachel right away. So you can't be frustrated, it's easy to be frustrated that you're not where you want to be, but finding contentment where you're at and realizing and knowing that there's going to be those processes that are going to get you there. But, that just reminded me,